Hello friends, today I am going to show you about AAA policy of the data power. So first of all, we need to understand what is AAA policy and how then we will see how it is configured in the data power. So knowing AAA policy is a very nice thing in data power because it is heart and soul of authentication that's performed inside the data power. So first of all, we need to have a theoretical understanding of how what AAA policy is and how it is processed, and then we will see on the data power interface where it is configured. So right now I'm showing you a diagram which basically depicts what AAA policy is and what is the scope of AAA policy. So AAA stands for authentication, authorization, and auditing. So this is what AAA policy is, and in this diagram the shaded box, which is a rectangle over here, shows the main focus of AAA policy, or you can say the scope of the AAA policy. So input and output are trivial things. So apart from input and output, I will explain each and every step. Data power AAA policy processing starts when input is fed into AAA policy. So two things happen parallelly. One is extracting the identity and one is extracting the resource. So both these things are necessary because extracting identity is something which will be utilized when you try to authenticate your user. So that is important. But for the purpose of authorization, you need to have resources as well, because typically how authorization is performed is that you have a matrix wherein you have users and set of resources, and and based on that matrix you typically specify that this user has access to this and this user has not access to this in a typical way. This is how authorization is performed. So extracting the identity and extracting the resource is the first step that happens inside the data power, and both these steps are independent, so failure of which one of them does not affect the another. Now once you have the identity, you try to authenticate it in some way. That authentication mechanism can be anything, but before I explain that, let me tell you that extraction of identity happens uh, inside the AAA policy, and you can extract the identity from any part of the message that is there in the data power. So when I say any part of the message, whenever a message hits the data power, there are two portions of it. One is the message content itself, you can say message body, and another is protocol headers or message headers kind of thing. So there are plenty of options wherein you can choose how to extract the identity, failing which, let's say that none of the pre-built things suits to you, then you can write your own custom script, which is basically an XSL script to extract the identity from a part of a message which is by default not available as a configurable option in the data file. So that's how identities are extracted. We will see on the front page what there is. Now second part is authentication. So authentication happens, and there are a lot of ways in which authentication can happen. Two typical ways are in which the identity itself is present on the data power. So you can have a file on the data power, and you can have user identity on the data power. Whenever extraction of identity happens, that identity will be authenticated based on that local file system, but this is for testing purpose only. uh, if you want to go into the real world scenario, you typically authenticate using LDAP, or you typically authenticate using Active Directory, TFIM, etc., etc. So that's how authentication happens. But let me tell you a peculiar thing about authenticate. Whatever the results of authentication are, data power does not stop processing over it. So whether authentication succeeds or authentication uh, fails, the next step, which is map credential, will be executed. So this is a typical thing about AAA policy. So we have extracted the identity, we have authenticated it, we have extracted the resource. Now map credential and map resources are trying to group those things. So for example, let's say if you have a lot of users and you want to group users based on roles, because in your access matrix where you will authorize people, that access matrix is based on roles. One role is administrator, another role is developer, for example. So you need to, in the map credential phase, you need to basically map the credential to appropriate role. So this is basically grouping identities in the form of role. So this is the purpose of map credential. Similarly, this is the purpose of map resource as well, because resources can be vast, and it may not be feasible to have all the resources listed in your matrix, in your decision matrix based on which you authorize people. So you will try to group resources, and that grouping happens inside map resource. So you have plenty of flexibility of grouping the resource. Map credential and map resources are something which essentially execute, but if you don't want to map credential and map resource, then you can simply tell data power that, hey, do not do these kind of activity. I mean, this is a this will act like an identity transformation. So in mathematical sense, sorry, identity transformation is mathematical sense. So once you have map credentials and map resources, all the inputs are fed into authorized phase, and once again authorization decision is taken. Now authorization decision can have two outputs. One is people is authorized, another is people is not authorized. So irrespective of the fact that people are get authorized or not authorized, another step, that is post processing, happens, and post processing is a very powerful step. So I tell you what is one typical use of post processing. So for example, you get user identity in terms of user ID, password, and resources as well, and you authenticated it and everything went successful. And while you are authenticating it, you used ADFS, and ADFS returned SAML as part of the authentication. So a successful authentication returns a SAML, but unsuccessful authentication returns fault. Let's suppose the authentication happened successfully, but your backend, so you have SAML so far, you have identity over here in the extract identity phase. In the authenticate phase, you have that SAML, but and after that you have SAML up to the post processing step. But the backend systems are such that they do not accept SAML. They accept, for example, LTPA. So where will you convert that SAML into LTPA? So post processing is the step where you can do additional processing over what are the outputs of these steps, these authorized map credential steps. So what you can do in post processing is that you can take that SAML and you can instruct data power that, hey, convert this into an LTPA token and set it as part of message or cookie or something else. So post processing will do that. This is one typical use of post processing, but post processing is a very powerful step, and it can be utilized for other purposes as well, and ultimately you will have an output. So this is a theoretical understanding of AAA steps, AAA things that happen inside the data. Now let's go back and see the data power interface where AAA things are configured and how they are configured. So in the control panel, I will write AAA. You must be in the appropriate domain, because AAA policies, AAA objects which you create in one domain are usually not visible in the another domain, and that happens with all the objects of the data power usually. So let me open up the AAA policy. Sorry. So let me click add, and it will show you what this AAA policy is. Right, so we are right here, and it says configure AAA policy, and there are several tabs which exactly maps to what I have shown you as part of figure. So if you just forget main for a couple of moments, then you can see we have extract identity, and I have shown you extract identity here, and then we have that authenticate phase. So here it is authenticate phase, and you can see map credentials, then you have extract resource, then you have map resource, then authorize, then post process, and there are a couple of more options available for customizing this AAA policy, like namespace mapping, SAML attributes, LTP attributes, etc., etc. But conceptually, these are the only these are the only things that happen inside AAA. So you can say that AAA is a 7 step processing in logical sense. So let's go back here and see what are the options available. So I'm going back to the main tab, and main tab is there for providing a name. So you need to provide a name, optionally a comment, and you need to leave other options as default. Other options are available for customizing AAA policy, but as soon as you configure other steps like extract identity and authenticate, these are populated automatically. Some of them are not populated automatically, but for the beginning purpose, you can leave them. As soon as you get more expertise in the AAA policy, you will know what all those options are and how to configure them. So this is main tab. Then you have extract identity. The purpose of this step is to extract the identity, the user identity, and you can see here there are a lot of methods, pre-built ways in which Datapower can extract the user identity. As I said earlier, Datapower is able to extract the identity from any part of the message that is present. So if you are sending your user identity in a standardized format, what I mean by standardized format is that there is a format that is specified by WS security, and there are other standard formats of identity exchange, like for example WS basic authentication. It was just an example, the Kerberos authentication. So these kinds of standardized message exchanges. So Datapower has a built-in support for that. So I tell you one simple example. So if you are dealing with basic authentication, then what you need to do is that you need to select this one, HTTP authentication header. This deals with the basic authentication. Give me a moment. Yeah, this deals with the basic authentication, and once you send your message to the Datapower uh, in the semantics of a basic authentication, DP will accept that and will automatically extract the user identity from appropriate HTTP header. So other options are also available, and you can see that this is not a radio, but this is a checkbox. So this is intended for the purpose that one single policy can be utilized for many different kind of objects which require to extract user identity from different portions of the message. So this is how, and it is not that they are tried in orders, because it's not like that Datapower will first try to do extract the user identity from www basic authentication header. No, it's not like that. It's like if you select multiple options, then in case you send a message, Datapower will try to extract the user identity or try to look user identity in all those forms. And if you have provided user identity in any of those ways, DP will extract that. So that's how this checkbox works. So this is extract identity, and you can see that list is pretty much long. So OAuth is also present. So if you are sending the user identity in terms of OAuth, they also will be taken care. LTPA token, you can have an LTPA token in your message, and Datapower will automatically extract. But if all these ways are not suitable for you, then you can choose a custom template method, and you can provide an XSLT over here. You can specify XSLT over here, and that XSLT will basically be acted upon on the message part of the incoming message, and then the user identity will be extracted. So this is something for advanced users, but for most of the purpose, this pre-built configuration will suffice, and in fact you should use the pre-built configurations. There is the second step is authenticate. I will come to the authenticate, but let's see what extract resource is. So extract resource can extract the resources. So we are here. We have extracted the identity, and now we are doing extract resource. Extract resource is something which will extract the resource. So resources can be URL sent to backend, URL sent by client, or if any of these does not suits you, then you can say XPath expression, and then you can specify a XPath so that the resources which are present in your message will be extracted. So that's how the extract resource kind of thing works. Then we have authenticate. So if you say authenticate, we are here, authenticate phase. There can be a lot of ways in which authentication can happen, and Datapower has some built-in configuration for that. So you can see that there are a lot of configuration methods available. You can accept a SAML assertion, LTPA token, you can bind to a specific LDAP server, and there are options for Tivoli Access Manager, which is TAM. So there are options for it. Validate the SSL certificate from connection peer. So there are a lot of options for it, and you will explore over time what these options are. So the purpose of it is to authenticate a user. Once you authenticate, the next step is to map credential and map resources. So go here, we have map credentials. So you can map credentials by any way: AAA info file, XPath expressions. You can just outsource this. This is the working of this step to Tivoli Federation Identity Manager, which is TFIM. It is again an IBM product. So you can just outsource this work to TFIM and say that, hey, this is something which I need to do, and do it for me. So that is something. If nothing works, then you can use the custom, and you can specify the custom style sheet for it. Then we have seen the extract resource. Then we have map resource. So we can map resources, and we again have the options, various options for mapping the resources. So then we have authorize. Now you can I tell you a typical thing about authorizing. So there are options available. So authorize says that how to authorize a client. You use AAA info file. AAA info file is basically Datapower. It resides on Datapower file system, and you can say that in this case the authorization decision is taken by the Datapower based upon this AAA info file. There is a way to write this AAA info file, and Datapower provides a tool for that. But the format is simply XACML, and that is pretty much standard format for this. Uh, these two options, allow any authenticated client and always allow. These two options are quite important. If you select always allow, despite the fact that authorization decision produced successful result, or the authorization decision says that hey, this is not a, authorized user, Datapower will always allow the control to flow. But if you say allow any authenticated client, then Datapower will only allow those clients which are basically authenticated. So you have authenticated over here, authenticated step, and after authentication, you got output that this is authenticated or not authenticated. If a user is not authenticated and you have chosen that allow any authenticated client, post processing will not happen because user is not authenticated. But if you choose always allow, then despite the fact that user is authenticated or not, post processing will happen. So this is the kind of difference between always allow, allow any authenticated client, and always allow. Other things are authorization decision like check for membership in LDAP group, clear test server, nitty-gritty site minder, and OAuth option is always available. Tivoli is IBM's product, so we can expect that such kind of integration is over here. Or XSEML authorization decision, use your own XSEML authorization decision. So this is something like that. Here is these options are for caching purpose. So Datapower, for the purpose of efficiency, Datapower cache the authorization result, and that you can specify whether Datapower needs to cache that result or not. So disabled means you will disable it, and that's all for this caching thing. And then is a post processor step, and this is typically a place where you do token transformation kind of thing. So if you have that SAML as part of your authenticate step and you want to convert into an LTPA token, click it, and then you have several options for configuring the LTPA token. So you can do that. If you don't want, you want WS security username token, you can do it over here. And similarly, there are other options as well in which you can tweak. Basically, you can play around any part of the message that was fed as an input to the AAA policy, and also there are some outputs which are generated by the AAA policy, so you can play around on them as well. So this is the post processing step. Apart from that, these are other things which you can utilize for fine tuning your AAA policy and also customizing in the way you want. But these are the core steps which I have shown you, and if they are configured properly, they can provide a powerful way in which AAA, which means authentication, authorization, and auditing, happens very efficiently inside the Datapower. So that's all for AAA policy, and this is basically an introduction of the AAA policy. So you can play around, and as soon as you get more acquainted with AAA policy, you will have more idea about it. So that's all. Thanks for watching. This is Ajitabh.